Hello. Good morning. How are you? Sometimes I feel like when I have a microphone, like I want to talk right into it. I know that's not really necessary. But anyways, good morning. How are you? It is Saturday morning, so the kids are home. So if you hear some giggling and excitement, that's what that is in the background. Also, how do you like my hair? It's a bit shorter than I expected. It was a shock to be real because, and to be fair, I do go to like a beauty school. It's a lot cheaper, so, but I won't go into a lot of detail, but I think I know what happened in the miscommunication. I feel like the instructor gave me her haircut misrepresent. Well, and I showed the stylist the idea of kind of what I was going for. Um, but I was like, hey, it's okay if you want to shorten up the back to kind of look like this, but like I like the long pieces in the front that kind of give you that like A-line look. And this is what I got. So it's fine. It's hair. It'll grow back out. The biggest reason I was there is to fix my hair color. I'm back to being brown. Sometimes I feel like just talking about regular things kind of helps me warm up into the video. So, welcome back. We are here to talk about all the books that I finished in February. There's a couple of books on here that I feel like deserve their own video. This is something I was talking about a fellow YouTuber with that I doing solo reviews is so intimidating and I don't know why, but I definitely feel like, especially this month, there are a couple of videos that I think that I really do need to do dedicated review videos and kind of talk in depth about them. So I really want to react and discuss some of the topics that were discussed in some of these books. The first book I finished, well, first of all, ooh. Oh my god, I do this every time. Oh, this is not even a complete list. So I have finished, this month I finished 14 books. The first book I read was Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. This is actually a memoir, and I completely thought going into this that it was about something completely different. This follows little young Frank McCourt as he was living in poverty in New York City, and he is the son of Irish immigrants. His family struggled really hard because his father was an alcoholic and he couldn't keep jobs. And when he did get some money, he would go spend it on alcohol. So his mom would always be really frustrated with their father because she couldn't provide meals and stuff like that. She couldn't afford things for the children. So there were unfortunately a lot of times where he would go without foods. That's just so sad. It's so sad to me. Honestly, I don't have a whole lot to say beyond that. I feel that I had this book really hyped up in my head because I had heard people say, like, this is such an amazing book. And of course, you can't really judge the experience of someone's life, but I felt that it was okay. I felt that it was good. And that's about it. So, the next one that I read was Unlocking One Another 30 Days to Better Communication. This is kind of like a self-help, what am I saying? It is like a self-help nonfiction book, and it's essentially for couples to help them. So I got this book off of Kindle Unlimited. They actually have a lot of books about these kinds of topics, like how to talk to your spouse or whatever, questions, conversation starters, and stuff like that. Whether or not you feel like your relationship needs a little help or not, these can be very beneficial. And I feel like the information in this book was not like earth shattering. I've never heard this advice before, but it did kind of, like, you have all these kind of like ideas about what you think a healthy relationship is, or communication in your relationship, or when they say that like you need to talk to your spouse, but there is like casual talking about things, and then there's like kind of a digging deep and making those deep connections to have really productive conversations. Even when conversation is difficult to have, they are essential. It kind of ties up and solidifies those ideas of how to talk more effectively with your spouse for healthier relationships, and I felt that it was really good. Yeah, I think that every relationship, I mean, it couldn't hurt, right? So I felt that it was really well written because these are not books that are necessarily fun to read. They're not difficult to read. I would much rather read like my fantasy books. And I do think that like if you've been married for a really long time, like my husband and I, we've been together almost 16 years. I think we have realized that in order to stay married much, much longer, we definitely have to give our relationship a lot more effort in attention in that department of just better communication. My mother in law, she was saying that the only reason her and her husband have been married for 30 years is because they talk. Every single night they talk. And I think that did really resonate with me. And it's not that like my husband and I, we don't talk. I think that we have a very unique situation as well because of the fact that he works out of state, and so half of the year we're like a long distance relationship, and sometimes our times don't match up, especially at his previous job, because there was also like a 3 to 4 hour time difference between us. Now we're on the same time with his new job, but so that's gonna make things a little bit easier. But it's the quality of conversation too. Like instead of just like, hey, how's it going? What are you doing? How are the kids? Here's the events or appointments. It's like, how are you truly? How are you feeling? Are you upset with me? My feelings are kind of hurt on what you said. Like, can you explain to me, or can I explain to you why you hurt my feelings? Like, and then having a receptive partner and just kind of letting go of a lot of pride and stuff to listen and to talk. So, anyways, if you are in a long-term relationship, if you are married, it couldn't hurt. The next book I read is Embroider Your Life. This is like a beginner's guide to embroidery. This is a skill that I really want to learn. I felt that this book was exceptionally well done because at the very beginning of every kind of like craft art book, they give you like a tutorial of basic stitches that you need to learn, and then they kind of go into different projects. Well, I felt that the basic stitches that you need to learn, they did not give you this overwhelming amount of different kinds of cool stitches. They really stuck it to most basic, like 5 stitches, and then all the projects in the book were different materials that like they were very simple short projects. I feel they had a lot of variety. For instance, there was one project in there where it used this technique on a material that I did not expect at all, and now I'm like obsessed with that idea. And what it is they took like a photograph and did like embroidery stitches in the corners, and it's really really cool to add that like 3D texture and design to a photograph. And like now I really want to do that for my own house. So I definitely feel like if this is ever a skill that you really want to learn, this would be a very good place to start. The next book I read is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This is the First and the Last Hours trilogy that is all part of the whole Shadowhunters saga. This book takes place in the early 1900s, and we follow some characters. We follow Cordelia Carstairs, who is Jem's cousin. It's a very long history. It is. If you've read the other books, then you will know who Jem is. And then we also follow Lucy and James Herondale, which are Tess and Will Herondale's children. And all of those characters are from the Infernal Devices series. I'm not going to talk about this one that much because I do have a very in-depth vlog about this. I did really like it. I feel that I was not enjoying the Shadowhunters world with the Dark Artifices. I hated that trilogy. And I can't even say that I truly hate it because I don't have a reason as to why I hated it. I can't remember anything from it. It was not a good reading experience. Those books were just massively large for all that happened. I do remember one part where there was just pages upon pages where they were just walking in the hell dimension and just all of their melodramas playing out, and I was just like, oh my god, this whole book we're just walking through, it just was so slow and boring and meandering. And thankfully this came back around, and this was very entertaining. There was so much going on. The drama was juicy. I really enjoyed it. The next book I read is The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. This is probably the third or fourth Rachel Hawkins, and actually, I've now read 5 Rachel Hawkins books, I believe, total. But anyways, this book follows two best friends who have kind of grown apart over the years. They are both authors, they are both published authors, and they decide to reconnect with going to an Italian vacation and staying in this villa. Now, I like to describe the mystery of this book. This is a domestic thriller style book, and I like to describe this book as like this mirror effect. So, you know, when you go into like a bathroom and there's mirrors on each side and you're staring into one mirror and you can like see yourself in the mirror, in the mirror, in the mirror. And it kind of has that effect, which I guess is kind of this really weird, unsettling feeling. And it really kind of leads into that thriller effect because we have our main two characters in the present time that they have their own mystery. We're going to find out what happened in their relationship to draw them estranged. One of our main characters is also divorced or going through a divorce, and she's still dealing with her ex. And it's a terrible situation. And there is a lot to unpack with that whole thing. But then, and because of her divorce, she is also in this like writer's block. So when she goes to this villa, she's just stuck and she's feeling really insecure because her friend is just like riding up a storm. She's super successful. She feels that her friend's success is bigger than her own, and I think that that's also contributing to a deeper kind of just block. Also, going through divorce can make you feel just like a failure, so I feel so compassionate for her. I feel so much empathy for her. So she finds new inspiration through the mystery of what happened in the past at this villa. She starts kind of digging into that history, and she starts researching and writing furiously on this story. So then we go back into a dual timeline and we go back into that story of that mystery. And we start unraveling that mystery. But within that story, there's even another storyline that the main character from that timeline this gets really confusing. The main character from that timeline is also trying to discover this other mystery with her mother. So yeah, when I say it's like this weird mirror effect, that's what I mean. I feel that it could be kind of confusing. I also feel that this one was a lot more serious than some of the other books that I read by her. I was able to like guess the twist before I saw it, which that does not bother me at all. I still really enjoyed this book. The next one I read is Vampires Never Get Old, Tales with Fresh Bite. This is a compilation of stories about vampires. We have some popular authors among many more. We have some popular authors, V.E. Schwab, Donald Clayton, Natalie C. Parker. Those are ones that I have read other books from, so I was really excited to kind of see their stories within this collection and see how they would write like a vampire story. I can't actually recall what those authors' stories were like. I can't. That is the thing with short story collections is unless there's like one really powerful, impactful story that really sticks with you, they all kind of just like they do their thing in the moment, and then like I find that they are kind of forgettable. So I can't really talk about each story individually. I do recall really enjoying this, and I think there's one story that really kind of stood out is one of the last stories that I read, and it's kind of about, it kind of takes place in a graveyard, like back in the days where they would put bells on the heads of freshly buried graves because sometimes the people that they buried weren't exactly dead. So they would be able to ring a bell if they were ever to be buried alive. And then we kind of take that into the setting of a vampire story. So that one I really liked. I felt that it was really creepy and unsettling, just as a proper vampire novel, just as a proper vampire story should be. The next book I read is The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. This is a celebrity biography, obviously. I don't think I need to state that. We all know Britney Spears is famous. This is a memoir that follows her life from when she was very young and enjoyed singing and performing. And I mean, she was just like, people just saw her singing and they were just like, oh my goodness, like we want more. And she just really kind of exploded, and she got into the Mickey Mouse Club, and ever since then she just work. But then it also follows into the struggles of fame, her relationship with Justin Timberlake, some of the stories behind some of those iconic paparazzi photographs that we have of her with her shaved head, some of the rumors that people were hanging on to, and like the stories behind that. And I felt very shocked by those. I felt really shocked by those because a lot of celebrities go through their party phase, and I don't fault anyone for that. I know people like really shamed her a lot for her behavior, but as someone who went through the party phase, like, I get it. And you can't mess up when there's a camera in your face all the time. It just holds bigger gravity, I guess, when you're famous, because anyone who's ever gone through a party phase has probably done a lot of stupid stuff, but the only thing is no one was watching and no one could sit there and rub it in our face. And those are just, you should be able to forget those things that you've done in the past. And only I know how embarrassing those moments were. And unfortunately for Britney, those embarrassing moments everyone knows about. And that has got to be crushing. I can't imagine the embarrassment and the weight of that kind of embarrassment, and how that would really damage your psyche. So I just thought it was really interesting to have the stories behind that. And the thing is, the whole like incident, the picture that you see where she has the shaved head and she's in her car, and I guess Paris Hilton was there. They were saying that she was partying, and she was like, we weren't even partying. That's the thing. We were not even drinking and partying, but they said that's what she was doing. So it became public knowledge that that's what she was doing. So that's really incredible testament to how much the media really twists the storyline. Now, you can debate if she is just saving face or if she is lying or not, but yeah, whatever. I choose to believe that you wouldn't write a book about something that you lied about. And then it also goes into her life now and follows through the whole conservatorship and everything else. And that was another topic I was very interested in. And not necessarily like how conservatorship happens. Like, obviously at some point they talked her into signing those rights away. But how did she get stuck, and how did she not know to go seek help a lot sooner to get out of that mess? And I feel that I could understand where she's coming from, because I think that's a big question of what people maybe don't understand about her situation is she got help now. She went to see an attorney, get her own attorney. But since the time she was little, since the time she started performing and they started paying her for her work, her parents have always managed her finances. I mean, kids don't know what they're doing. So it's like they just automatically they started managing her finances. And so she's never had to learn how to do that stuff for herself. And with that, she's never had to think, what are my rights? How do I go about pleading my case? And okay, she could Google it. I know that's the next thing, is like she could Google it. But I think that I think she was so conditioned. I think there's another layer of kind of manipulation and control there and helplessness there, is that she'd already been in a mental state of like depression, and they were putting her on drugs and stuff like that. That really diminishes your ability to be able to think clearly, to do those things. And that's why they were doing it. They didn't want her to think. They just wanted her to be a monkey performing monkey. And then the next thing is, while you can feel that you don't trust the people closest to you, and she says this too, where you don't trust the people closest to you, the people like your parents, how could you imagine that they were the ones doing this to you? She already lost a lot of trust with other people in her life. How is she supposed to go to a stranger and trust that they're going to have her best interest? Because like, we know we're not famous, so like we could go and meet a stranger. They're not going to know who we are from the next person. She could go to see this person that doesn't know anyone else in her family, but they know who she is. They've heard her stories, they've heard her rumors. She felt like they weren't going to take her seriously, and she's had time and time to prove that no one will take her seriously, no one will believe her story. And if she can't trust her parents, how can she trust a stranger? So I feel that a lot of this, she's been really conditioned to believe that you can't trust anyone, and she really felt stuck. And I also feel that there is a level that while maybe you question whether or not the people closest to you are being honest, you're conditioned to always just listening to them and doing what they say regardless. So I think that trying to kind of break away mentally from those mind traps was probably a feat of its own. It was a huge feat of its own. So this book was just amazing. It was so amazing. Also, she says in the introduction that reliving these memories was so difficult for her that she couldn't narrate the book herself. So she has Michelle Williams narrating it, and I thought that Michelle Williams did an amazing job. She has such a nice voice. So yeah. The next book I read was The Madman's Daughter by Megan Shepherd, and I did not know going into this that this was a classic retelling of The Island of Dr. Moreau, and I have not read that book either. It's actually one of the books that I really want to read, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. And this was a really fun take. I don't know how closely it follows the original story, but our main character is actually living with her uncle. Her mother just died. Her father has been gone for quite a while because there's rumors that he is dead as well, so she believes that she's this orphan. But there was a lot of rumors surrounding his science. He's a scientist, and so there was a lot of rumors and criticism about the kind of sciences that he was practicing. She did not want to believe that any of those rumors were true, and that she wishes that she could talk to him and have him tell her, like, no, they had it all wrong. So one day she runs into a kid that she grew up with. He's not a kid anymore. And he is like, oh no, your dad's not dead, and I know where he is. And she's like, okay, you're taking me to him. And so they go off on this adventure. They wind up at the island, and things are not as she expected. She knows that he was like trying to hide out from society because they're like after him. But they get to the island and things are really creepy. And things get really weird and gross and creepy and terrifying. So it was really good. The next book I read, I have here. Unfortunately, the buy-sell trade store did not want to take this, so I still have it in my possession. And actually, my son's school is doing a book drive, so I will just donate it. Anyways, this book was actually featured in a recent vlog, and I realized while editing it, I never really talked about what this book was about, so it's kind of more like a day in my life sort of vlog, I guess. But anyways, this book, The Park, I read this for a TBR basket pick, and this is a graphic novel. It's about 150 pages. It looks a lot larger, but it's pretty standard for, a graphic novel. We are following this father and daughter and this son and this father. And I really like the storytelling because they are connected in some way, and you kind of get to see it all come full circle. So this man is this really grumpy old man. He's very confrontational. He will tell you how it is. He's kind of like a Karen, and she goes around at night vandalizing for activism. So there's that. And he obviously does not agree with her nightly activities. This guy is incredibly passive, and he lets people walk all over them, even when he's assaulted unreasonably by them and accused of something he did not do. He's just like, well, it is what it is. And his son hears about this story, and he's like, Dad, come on now. That was completely uncalled for. Are you going to stand up for yourself? So because he does not stand up for himself, his son decides to do it for him. And then how it all comes full circle is really interesting, and it did leave it off on a cliffhanger. I don't know if there's a sequel. I don't really care. I won't be reading it more. I did really enjoy this story, but I don't think like, it's not like shattering. So this probably falls in about a 3. I also really like the illustrations, or these really nice like watercolor. I feel like it's a little bit different illustration style than a lot of graphic novels. So there's that. The next book I read is Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman, and this is the second book in the Arc of the Scythe series. And I've always loved Scythe. It is an amazing book. It follows this whole story. Well, first, this is a futuristic world where they have eradicated death. When people become dead-ish by like an accident or something, if they get hit by a bus and they die-ish, they just get sent to a rehabilitation center and they bring them back to life, reassemble them, whatever, put them back on the street, pat them on the bum and, say, have a good day. Also, they don't really die of old age if they they can just like reset the clock back. So it's very interesting. So because nobody dies anymore, they have an overpopulation situation. So they started to introduce scythes who get to go and kill people, glean people, and they are given certain amount of rights. They don't have to work. So when they show up at your door, like, you need to offer to feed them and give them basically whatever they want. People generally do, with the hope of kissing the ring so that they can be have immunity for a year or whatever. It's just such a very complex system that Neil Shusterman built in this world. In the first book, we are following Rowan and Citra, who are new apprentices to Scythe Faraday, and they will apprentice for, I think the term is like a year or whatever, and then, or longer, I'm not sure. So they will apprentice, and then at the end of the apprenticeship, they will decide which one of them gets to become a scythe. And even within that, you get to meet some of the other scythes, but you really get to understand Scythe Faraday. And I think something happens kind of in the middle of it, and Rowan actually gets moved to a different, that's right, Rowan gets moved to a different scythe as an apprentice, Scythe Goddard. And his style is so much different. It's like the opposite of Scythe Faraday. So then it kind of opens up the world a little bit to different scythes having their different methods of the purpose that they glean. Now, book 2 is one of the rare occasions where I feel that the second book is maybe even better than the first. And it's like, it took me a long time because it's so dense. There's so much more information. It cracks open the world so much wider. You get to meet so many new scythes. You get to see Rowan and Citra and completely different. Something happens to them, and also Scythe Faraday, and it's just, there's so much to it. It's so interesting. It's phenomenal. I cannot wait to start reading the third book, The Toll. The next book I read is In the Company of Witches by Orly Wilson. For whatever reason, this one just blew up on the internet. A lot of the YouTubers that I watch, on every single favorite books read, this is on their list. So I was like, okay, naturally. Hey, it's about witches. Can't go wrong there. And what I didn't realize is that it's part of one of those cozy mystery series, but that's okay. So I guess I was just kind of surprised, because usually you see other books, I don't know, so this series takes place at a bed and breakfast. It follows the Warren witches who own the bed and breakfast, and I'm guessing it's one of those style of cozy mystery series where it's every book you get a new story with a new guest that's staying at the bed and breakfast. But in this one, we are following our main character, who is a Warren witch, and she recently lost her husband. Being a witch, they have certain specific affinities, powers, what have you, and hers is to actually see ghosts. We're also following another character, Constance, who is an older woman who is staying at the bed and breakfast. And I guess it's because her home is having some work done on it, but she is the grumpiest, horriblest woman you have ever met. She is so incredibly entitled. She just feels that everyone owes her everything. She has these tall order requests that she demands from the staff. It's just way beyond what they're there to do. One of the sisters, I think her name was Nora, she will just say the first thing that comes to her mind, and she said something kind of threatening towards her. So when Constance ends up dead, some people start to say, well, it wasn't an accident, she was murdered. the Nora's the one that said that she was threatening her. So then we start into this whole mystery of how they need to figure out what happened to Constance to free Nora from taking the blame for this. And it would be super easy if our main character could just speak to her ghost. So people are putting a lot of pressure on her to like get over her husband, so she could have her powers back or whatever. And so we have a lot of deep discussions on grief, that sort of thing. Like, why do they feel like she should just get over it? She does not feel ready for it yet, despite everyone else being uncomfortable. So they have to do it the old-fashioned way, and they start digging into Constance's family and her history. And I felt that was really interesting too, because I really don't feel that most people who are so angry and grumpy with life are just born that way. I think that something has happened in their lives to make them that way. And so we do get to kind of learn more about perhaps why Constance is just so angry. And it ended up being really touching and heartwarming story. I feel like it had a lot of depth to it. The next book I read is Crave by Tracy Wolff. Now, to be fair, I knew this book was going to be bad. I wasn't even going to read this book. Oh, you saw a bird. I wasn't even going to read this book because I knew it was going to be just really bad YA. But then a fellow YouTuber that I follow, she gave this book 4 stars. And we kind of like some of the same stuff. We could still appreciate YA. And then I also knew it was supposed to be like Twilight. I didn't realize how much like Twilight it was supposed to be. And I love Twilight. So I was like, let's give it a try because, maybe it'll be in a really fun way to kind of relive some Twilight moments. And, I think that at the end of the day, I would rather it had stood out on its own, even if it had some sort of, you could see the inspiration, where that inspiration comes from, but it should have been, I feel that it still should have stood out on its own. And I didn't really like the parallels that they had, or complete and utter overlap, to be honest, because they actually just pulled direct lines and copied and pasted some of the lines for our characters, and I just was like, it just doesn't feel right. Also, the main male lead character love interest gifts the main female character a copy of Twilight, which makes it even weirder because you're like, you read the book. Obviously, you probably both read the book. And either it's ironic and it's like you think it's romantic to like repeat some of these words, but like, I don't know. It was a weird choice. Let's just say that. I think that what could have made this book a lot better, even if it is a fan fiction, is to take some of the tropes, themes, and maybe certain things, certain strengths that are vague enough that you could pull from the original and then plug in other different things, but have it stand out on its own. One really good example of where Crave did it right is, I know a lot of criticism is that Bella is boring and the only thing she's interested in is Edward. And they took our main character in Crave and gave her a lot of other interests. So she was a lot more dynamic character than Bella was. And I felt that was one good way to kind of redo the Bella slotted character. I also felt that the addition to having other supernatural characters, I can't say that I really enjoyed that. So not only do we have the vampires and werewolves, but we also have a dragon character, gargoyles, and I just feel like I'm like reliving Legacy, the TV show Legacy, and I'm not even a huge fan of Legacy either. What makes this book even worse is the insta-love. And I know that Twilight is considered, I know a lot of people say that Twilight has insta-love, and I could debate that all day long. I really could. I disagree. But if we're trying to like redo Twilight, this is so different because a much different vibe around the whole love story. Twilight was, there were months before they like really talked and everything. But there was definitely a significant amount of time where just like little interactions would happen and Bella would mull those things over and go about her life for a while before they maybe like have another interaction. This was like straight out of the gate. She shoulder bumps Jackson, flips around and glares at her, and then it's suddenly like, you're in danger, and she's like, oh my god, I love him. It hasn't even been a week, girl. Like, it has not even been a week. And then, so, I mean, you want to talk insta love? Like, no, no. This is nothing like the way it's claimed to be in Twilight. The next incredibly horrendous, cringe thing in this book is that our main character is literally in like mortal danger, or she's beaten to a bloody pulp on her deathbed. Like, every freaking chapter. Can we desist a little bit with like, do we just want to torture her? I don't know. So she goes to Alaska. This is supposed to be Alaska. And granted, I don't know. I don't know how far up exactly she is. I think she's close to, I think that, is it close to Fairbanks? Or she flies into Fairbanks and then has to take a snowmobile out to like the country to where the school is. Whatever. But apparently she is threatened with altitude sickness, and this is a huge adjustment for her. So they're like, oh, do you need water? Do you need water? Do you need water? We get it. And then, oh, she needs rest, and she's like excused from jumping into everything because she's dealing with altitude sickness. I guess I just felt that full-on altitude sickness is probably not... It's probably a little dramatic, because altitude sickness could actually kill you if you've watched all those, like, Everest movies and stuff like that. Like, your lungs actually could fill up with fluid or something like that. I forgot exactly how it is. Anyways, altitude sickness is a very serious condition, and I just feel like you're in Alaska. You're not at Everest. Like, it's a little dramatic. I get that there is quite the adjustment period and all of that, but like, did we have to go all the way that lean so far? Anyways, beyond that, someone's always trying to kill her, and she's always in danger, and she's like in this little box of frailty, and it's just so overdone. It is so dramatic. And it's on every single chapter. We're having to, like, she's always in the infirmary healing. And I get, like, you need some action. You need some... They want to portray that she's human in the supernatural world and all that. I just did not like it. Another kind of thing where I just felt like it really, really fell short was when our main character finds out that everyone at her new school is supernatural creature, and she had no idea any of this existed. There's a very, very short period of like, what? What's happening? I can't believe this. This is all happening within a week. I swear to goodness. She just takes it and moves on. I also hate that our main character is a royal. I just feel like, how much more can we shove into this book? Like, it's already just so dramatic, and now we have to add this extra layer of drama. It feels so weird because of the fact that it's so much like Twilight. I'm expecting it to be more in a Twilighty, like the real world kind of thing, but have supernaturals in the real world. And like, we are so far removed from having royalty, and then like among these vampires you have I don't know. It just feels very misplaced. I don't like it either. And basically, I am done talking about this book. I think it's exhausting me, just kind of rehashing it all. I'm very disappointed that it was so tragically bad for me. Anyways, the next book I read was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Apparently, we're in the mood for celebrity biographies. I actually have another one that I plan on reading this month called Brave. That's Rose McGowan's story. This was a phenomenal book. She narrates it herself. Sora, get out of the blinds. There. I'll move him up for you. He wants to look out the window. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I feel like this is one that I wanted to maybe consider doing another video, just give it its own dedicated video, because I feel like there's a lot more that I would really like to kind of respond to in her story. And I guess one thing is a little bit of background, because I didn't really know of Jeanette McCurdy. I really kind of ran into her story because I was following the creator. What is his name? Dan Schneider's story. And because of that, I saw the cringy, terrible clips of things that the producers were making the kids do. Just appalled that where were the parents during the filming thinking, looking at these things going like, okay, I get that maybe they're kids and maybe they don't understand what they're doing, but if you're an adult, you see what you're actually saying, and you know that there are people out there that are looking at this in a much different way than, oh, this is a goofy kid show. And it really kind of creeps me out. It makes me feel so icky. And thank God he is in jail. And through that, I started seeing some of these actors as they're getting older. Jeanette McCurdy is a really powerful voice with that aftermath. But this story is actually not really so much about what she did on Nickelodeon. It's much more about her relationship with her mother. And it's so incredible. It's so well done. I hope she continues writing because I feel like this is her strength. I know at some point she never really liked performing and acting, and just maybe not even so much being on stage, but she just got really shitty jobs too that she wasn't proud of. At one point she wanted to like be a director, and I hope she keeps writing because there is also an undertone to this book that I was really surprised by. Like the more I sit with it, the more I contemplate it. She's not afraid or shy away from a lot of graphic details about her mom and what her mom did to her, like including when she's 16 still showering her brother and her together. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine like how humiliating that's got to be. And then a much other things. Just she has never been able to have control over her own body. Essentially, her mom even has control over the most basic things of her body and autonomy and stuff like that. So like that kind of level of control and manipulation just runs so deep, and it gives me chills. It makes me so sad for her. I'm trying not to go into all of my feelings about this here because this is a very long video as it is. The thing that really shines for me now that I've sat with it for a while is that by the end of it, she has been going to therapy, seeking that help. The first therapist tried to tell her that what her mom did was abusive, and she was like, no. She rejected that. She did not want to, she could not face the fact that what her mom did to her was abusive, because by that time she held her mom on such a pedestal and loved her so much. And that's exactly how her mother conditioned her to live her life for her mother, and everything she did was through the eyes of her mother's approval. So that was a very difficult thing for her to face, is just that was an abusive relationship. It was unhealthy. Her being able to just be like, okay, I can identify that was abusive and unhealthy now through all of her therapy. But she never once really says like, I hate her, I can't believe she did that to me, I feel betrayed, or anything like that. And there is like this whole like tone behind the story that she couldn't hate her, but she can just identify that it happened, and now she has to deal with the repercussions. But she doesn't ever put that heavy amount of blame and anger on her mom necessarily. I don't know why, it really stands out to me, that emotion, you know? And maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's just what I gleaned from the way she ends the book and everything. So I can hate her mother for her. Now, for the very last book, it's a little bit lighter note and a much shorter book to talk about, and that is the last book I read is called The Heiress, another book by Rachel Hawkins. This one was a really good book. This is another domestic thriller. It was a really good book. It follows this guy who, I kept wondering, who the heck is the heiress? But I guess the heiress would be, or whatever, Rose, whatever her name is, Rose or something. She had just passed, so apparently everything she had was left to this guy who doesn't really want to have anything to do with the family. He's actually not even part of the family. He's kind of adopted, so the immediate blood relatives are really sour about this whole thing. So he was really avoiding having to go and confront this, and he takes his wife with him. And his wife is like, what? It's just the people. Once you go ahead and inherit everything, and then we get rid of everyone else, and then she can, by proxy, have this amazing estate, right? But then she realizes it's not going to be that easy because the secrets of this family run so deep, they're so twisted, and as the story goes on, you get to really unravel all these stories. So, that was a really good one. And now that this video is incredibly long, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye.